You determine at every point in time what is important.
Yeah.
And again, I remember a piece of advice a partner gave me much earlier in my career.
Yeah.
That life, and certainly at the top, it's like spinning 5 sets of plates in the air.
Okay.
And all you need to do is make sure that you don't drop each one of them. So you spin each a little bit,
Yeah.
then spin that a little bit, spin it a little bit. Just keep it all up.
Okay.
And you find that you will do just fine.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Against All Odds. Our guest tonight is a very, very, very interesting person. I've spent the last hour with him, and we've had a remarkable conversation. He's in the person of Mr. Antwi Okyere-Darko. Antwi is a partner in audits and assurance for Deloitte UK, where he has worked for the past 17 years. Prior to that, he spent a year at PwC. Antwi is a chartered accountant with the Institute of Chartered Accountants England and Wales. He also has a master's qualification in accountancy and finance from the London School of Economics and a first-class degree in economics from Queen Mary University of London. And guys, wait for this. Antwi is an alumnus of the Presbyterian Boys Secondary School in Accra, Ghana. You're the first person from Presec I've interviewed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. He's also an acclaimed and in-demand speaker who has featured at key events and masterclasses all across the world. I mean, I think the last time we spoke, you were heading to Lagos or Egypt. I can't remember.
I think it must have been Lagos.
Lagos, yeah, to hold the masterclass. And he's been instrumental in closing a number of high-value deals across the UK and Africa. So join me in welcoming Mr. Antwi Okyere-Darko to the podcast. Antwi, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Antwi, you've got a very interesting story. Maybe you should just tell our guests a bit about your background.
Yes, so I was born in Asokore in Koforidua, the eastern part or eastern region of Ghana.
Okay.
And I lived with my grandmother. Went to primary school in the Roman Catholic primary school in the area in Asokore in the mid-80s.
Okay.
And then I moved to Accra and went to Reverend John Terr Memorial Institute, where I carried on with my primary school education.
Okay.
And on completing my JSS, as you say, proud of that year, I went to Presec Legon, where I left in September 1997 to come to the UK to study for A-levels.
So tell us a bit about that as well, because one of the reasons why you were even recommended as a guest on our podcast is that you've got a very traditional, when I say traditional upbringing, there's like, you were not you didn't grow up with a silver spoon in your mouth. You sort of, you've basically taken your opportunities as they've come. And you mentioned a very interesting story about how you even came to be in the United Kingdom to study. So maybe just tell us about that.
Absolutely. As I said, having been, if you've ever sort of been to Asokore in Koforidua before, it's a village. Now you call it a town, but back then, as I said, I lived with my grandmother who was a farmer, and I went to the Roman Catholic primary school in the area. In fact, we had morning shift and afternoon shifts. So that's how I started school. But coming back to your question in terms of how I got to the UK, my family, through a family friend, in fact, a very generous British man, gave me the opportunity. He actually brought me to the UK, and I had the opportunity to then come and do my A levels through him. And when I got to the UK, just like any other African immigrant, I lived in Manor Park, if you know, in
East London,
and very challenging times, but I wouldn't say it's anything different to any other African immigrant, who was sort of living in that part of London, if you do know what I mean, in that part of London. So yes, but as you say, through hard work, I continued with my education, haven't left Presec. So continued, as I said, finished my A levels, and on completing the A levels, I went on to do a university degree, as you said at the start, at Queen Mary. And then had my first taste of professional services when I joined PwC. And then after about a year, I decided to go to continue studying to do a master's at the London School of Economics. And after that, having tasted, what it was like in the city, I was tempted to go back. And so after some good amount of reflection, conversations with family, I decided that continuing to study or pursuing a PhD, which was actually my original plan, was not what I wanted to do, and that I wanted to go and work in the city. So I joined Deloitte. I applied to the Deloitte graduate program back in 2006. And I was successful in that, and so have been with Deloitte, as you said, for the last 17 years or so.
That's amazing. I mean, one thing we said earlier on, I know there's a very abridged version of your story, but one thing you said earlier on was the fact that the reason why or as part of your integration into the UK system, you had to do A levels, which was not being offered in your country of birth. So you came here and had to basically study or do A level subjects. And you had to apply yourself. And all that. And I mean, what was it like in that environment? Did you have professional people around you at that time who probably guided you, or was there anybody who might perhaps have influenced you as you progressed in your studies that you think have kind of helped you to get to where you are today as a partner?
No. In fact, I wish I did, and I probably have gotten to where I've gotten to by luck. I don't know. I mean, we will see as we go along with this conversation. But no, definitely, I didn't have any professional around me. There was no professional in my family, and in fact, I just had no idea as I was going to university or what I was going to do after, because as I said, in the part of London, Manor Park, there were no black, forget about even Ghanaians, people in that area who were professionals or working in the city of London. So I had no such exposure. But when I sort of entered university, and in my second year in university, I'm very competitive, extremely competitive, and in whatever field or environment I find myself in, I want to be the best or one of the best. And I remember this very well because it's obviously it's what how I began with my career in the city because of this experience. But it was having met a young Latvian lady who was on my course, extremely competitive herself, very intelligent. And through that competition between the two of us, we became friends. And in one conversation, I realized that she had applied for an internship when we were in our second year.
Okay.
She had applied for an internship, and in fact, she had just completed the internship.
Okay.
I remember again the story very well because she had applied to the European Central Bank because we were economics students.
Okay.
So she had applied to the European Central Bank, and then she had also applied to, I think, Credit Suisse.
Okay.
And she had both offers. She was offered an internship by both
places. Okay.
institutions.
Okay.
And she chose to go to the European Central Bank. And when she came back and told me the story about, that professional world and working in an office.
Before then, you had never worked in an office. You didn't know.
No, I didn't know anything. I mean, look, when in that environment,
Manor Park environment,
back in the days, I mean, now it's completely different, obviously. But back then, you certainly did not in that part of London come across Black people who were working in the city, or certainly I came across. But as I said, this lady then opened my eyes to this new world. And I got to understand that actually I could, on completion of my studies, also get a job in the city.
Okay.
So whilst I didn't apply for an internship, I had, or my eyes had been open to what was out there.
What was possible.
Absolutely. And so actually very early on, just at the tail end of my second year, or as we were about to begin the third and final year, I applied for a graduate job because she had then told me about the process and how it all works.
If you're enjoying this episode, I'd like you to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification, and also like, share, and comment. Now let's get back to this episode.
And she told me about the accountancy firms and, what service lines, I could apply to and so on and so forth. And so, as I said, she had opened my eyes and I made that first application to PwC, as I said.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate to have secured a job with PwC 7 months even before I graduated.
Okay.
And again, I remember this story well because I was the only person at the time on the program who had secured a graduate job. So even this lady I talked about, while she had done an internship, she had not secured a graduate job. And that gave me a lot of confidence. And just as I was...
Was it a conditional offer on you doing well?
No, the PwC offer was not conditional on anything. Which again surprised me. But they, as part of the recruitment process, obviously they look at your academic record, your...
And were you on track to get a first at that time?
I was on track to get a first. But in fact, the requirement for the job, actually, I think they had said a minimum of 2-1. But I wasn't in any way concerned about that at all. But it's not just your university degree, they sort of look at your track record. And as part of the recruitment process, you have to do those psychometric tests and all so on and so forth. So the PwC offer was not conditional. So I had secured that. But I am the type of person who never likes to put all my eggs in one basket. And so I wanted an insurance policy. And what I did was I knew the PwC offer was there. It was never going to go away. PwC was not going to collapse. That offer was going to be at risk. But I had always wanted to possibly, in fact, it was my father who was encouraging me to continue to study, to become, complete a PhD and become a doctor. He all consistently talked about wanting you to be a doctor. You know what it is like with Ghanaian parents. So I also applied for a master's program leading on to a PhD at the London School of Economics. And so as I was, or when I entered my third year, I
had these two options.
I had the two options. I had the
Okay.
PwC offer and I had the LSC, MSc offer also in my hand.
Okay.
But the LSC one was on condition of getting a first class.
Oh, okay.
But I was not worried about that at all. Whilst I and my friends in Presec will tell you, you may not see me studying in the day, but I definitely studied. So I was not worried about getting a first class.
Okay.
Anyway, so went through it. Obviously, I got a first class, and then I then deferred the LSC offer.
Okay.
And took the PwC
so you had
job
had at least a year's work experience.
A year work experience.
Okay.
And as I said, subsequently I went to the LSE.
Yeah.
And then decided I want to go and work.
Yeah.
And so I.
So when you joined Deloitte eventually.
Yes.
Were there people like yourselves, people of color, and all that? How did you adapt to the corporate world, and how did you basically acculturate and learn the corporate way of doing things?
So, answering the first question, were there people like myself? No. In fact, in my intake, if I remember, I certainly don't remember seeing a black person in my intake. Okay. This is obviously, as I said, in September 2006.
Yeah.
Were there any black people that I had seen in senior positions in the firm at the time? No. But, I'm not one who really focus on the color of the skin.
Okay.
I have never really focused on that.
Okay.
I have a strong belief that if you're good enough, if you work hard enough, that
I like that
will see you through.
And I like that.
In my time in Deloitte, I have never really, and that is not to say you don't encounter challenges. Of course you do. But I've always looked beyond that. Okay. And whilst I didn't have, if you want to call it, black role models at the time, I had white role models. Okay.
That you could learn from.
That I learned from.
Who took you under their wing,
I will not be where I am today without, that support that the firm provided. Individual managers. So when I was an associate or a senior associate, as I sort of went through the ranks, at every level, there was somebody who was looking after me. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
But you became a director very young, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Even before you became a partner, you became a director very, very young.
But the process is such that in order to become a partner, you have to become a director. You will not go from so the
associate.
The stages are, you are an associate, you go on to become a senior associate, assistant manager, manager, senior manager, director, and then partner. Right. So yes, it was that is how the process works.
Okay.
And so you often will have a number of people at the junior level, but as it gets,
it's like a pyramid.
Yeah, absolutely.
But did you ever see yourself, I mean, when you started on your career, did you ever see yourself as becoming a partner?
No. And that is because I think there was and perhaps maybe going back to your earlier question about, role models and so on, and maybe not seeing people of color in that senior positions. Whilst I noted earlier that I never really looked at the color of my skin as I went through the ranks, there was always a part of me that thought that at some point I was going to leave to go back to Ghana.
Okay.
There was always a part of me that thought that.
Okay.
And part of that may have been because perhaps I know how difficult it is to make it to partner.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it,
it's a whole process.
So and
it takes about a year, isn't it, to go through the partnership?
To go through the process.
Yeah.
But even before you reach that partner, obviously, as you become a senior manager or a director, there's also a process. And again, it's very, very competitive, particularly from senior manager to director.
Okay.
And very, very.
So are there people who never progress beyond director to partner?
Of course.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, it is. Of course. So it is very, very competitive. And there are people who will attempt the partner process 3-4 times.
Really?
Yes. I was very fortunate. On my first attempt, I made it. So perhaps because of how difficult I know it is, and it's not because you're black, but even for the white colleagues, it's very, very rigorous. Difficult. Yeah, absolutely. So, to think that I was going to get there, no, and it's a lot of hard work also at that, and probably I thought I may find an opportunity elsewhere, and so no, I didn't really look.
So how did you prepare yourself for sitting in the boardroom and sitting in board meetings and dealing with people at that level? I know you mentioned that you had some influence from Sir Sam Jonah, who we both know. And I mean, was there anything that you did to prepare you for? Because I know that you're very, very, very. I mean, you're very quiet. You're very, you keep yourself to yourself. But I know you're a very senior person. You sit in a very senior position. You're privy to a lot of high level conversations. And for someone who doesn't come from England, who was not born in England, to be able to progress, and not just progress, but also to contribute effectively on that playing field, you must have certain attributes. There must be something that you do that kind of helps you to survive in that space. So, I mean, is there anything that you can probably tell a young person watching this, in some skills, something that you've done? Like I said, I've spoken to you before on a weekend, and I think you were at a football match watching your son, but you were trying to close a deal somewhere, dealing with somebody in South Africa, somebody was somewhere else in the UK.
Yes.
So I've got a good memory.
Yes, very, very, yes. I remember that day.
That day, yeah. I was very, very hectic. I was like, Daniel, I've got to close this. I've got to get this thing done,
Yes.
And you're juggling all those balls. But I'm just wondering if there's some attributes that you think have helped you.
The one thing that I would say, and I'm sure anyone who has worked in a big four, certainly in the UK, will tell you, it is hard work, extremely competitive, as I said. And everyone, certainly in senior position, let no one deceive you. If anybody tells you anything else, it's not the truth.
Okay.
It is hard work, and the people around you are all working hard. So I think, and the system actually develops you. There is a lot of support within this. Once you're in, it's hard and difficult to get in. But if you get in and you embrace the system and the opportunities, I mean, the training, I mean, I obviously, you don't just get to partner, you go through the stages, as I said. And at every stage, you're having to develop. So your first managerial experience will be as an assistant manager, where you will be dealing, with middle management in your client organization. You lead meetings. You will have senior managers, directors, and partners in the room.
Wow.
But as the assistant manager, you are the one in charge, and so you start from an early stage, actually learning to present.
Okay. Okay.
And it's similar to being, at that senior level in the boardroom, but you start, and you've got that support network, the managers, the senior managers, the director, and the partners all in the room, all looking at you presenting, and when you are wrong, they will step in and correct, and so you learn.
Did you ever feel nervous?
No. Did I ever feel? No. I actually remember one story. A very well-respected partner who I had gone to work for, and it was a FTSE company, so a listed top company in the UK. And this partner, well-respected, within the firm, and in one meeting where I was presenting at the time, I was actually a senior manager. But the engagement was of size and skill that, as a senior manager, you will be the one presenting rather than a junior manager. And I remember having finished the presentation, gone through the issues and so on. The partner looked at me and gave me thumbs up.
Wow.
And then I knew that I had done a good job. But then, you grow in confidence. You do grow in confidence as you sort of, and it becomes second nature because you're just doing it on a daily basis. I mean, this is what we do. I think at this stage, you're not. Certainly, you won't. You probably will be nervous at the
early stages. So then, these soft skills that you think have helped you on this journey, because obviously you are not just UK focused. You're super. I mean, your remit is international. You deal with people in Africa and the Middle East and various places. And you obviously travel a lot as well, so you sort of come into contact with different cultures and stuff like that. Are there any soft skills that you think somebody watching this who wants to aspire to a senior position, can learn about relationships and understanding cultures and being accepting of people who are not like ourselves?
The 1 year that I spent in PwC taught me a lot, actually, because I had never worked in that professional environment before, as I said. And what I realized or learned in that 1 year, or realized I needed to learn, was those soft skills you talk about. And, earlier on I mentioned about being competitive. And if I realize there's something that I lack, I will take whatever steps I need to take to sort of learn those skills. And so coming back to your question, I mean, I remember realizing that communication was absolutely key. Communication skill. At every stage, it will come to play. So verbal and written communication. Being articulate, clear in your explanation, logic, thinking things through before you speak, absolutely key. And so actually when I went to the LSC, one of the things that I did, being, an African immigrant, I was not exposed to computers. PwC was where, and I remember very well sitting alongside, some colleagues who could touch type. And this is, I'm reducing it to that basic level for you to actually understand the importance of some of these soft skills. And just touch typing and the speed and therefore productivity, being able to complete things very quickly, I realized that I had a way to go. And so in that 1 year in PwC, again, this Latvian lady I told you about, because she also went to the LSC.
Okay.
So I met her there in that, and she got me a touch typing program
Okay.
as a gift.
Okay.
And I learned how to touch
type,
type in that 1 year in PwC.
Okay.
Such that when I joined Deloitte,
Yeah.
in fact, I was actually one of the people in my year intake who could touch type. And so communication, verbal and written, and written, it's not just any form of writing, but board level writing, that formal writing. I mean, it's the sort of thing that you do actually learn on the job, because as our job, you write lots of reports, and these reports are written by the juniors, and then obviously reviewed by managers and partners and so on. So you do learn how to write formally, but knowing how to write, and then several courses now that you can actually take to learn how to write from. Somebody would think, well, I can write an email. No. The board level writing is
different.
It's different.
Okay.
And sometimes actually when you read a very good writing, there is something about it. The people that work for me will tell you that maybe I'm petty and I pick on things, but I guess it's because of the training that I have had, some of the senior partners and people I've worked with, who, because obviously their experience and seniority, they like things to be written, succinctly, and there are sometimes you read something and you think this is good, so that communication, I would say, absolutely number one, verbal and written. Number two, work ethic. I talked about the competitive nature of the city,
and of life, really,
and of life, absolutely. And if you want to get to the top, I'm afraid you're going to have to, let nobody deceive. I've said this twice now. Whatever it is, whether, in fact, I remember listening maybe about 3 or so months ago, listening to an interview or a documentary actually on Ronaldo, the footballer, and he talked about what he puts in to reach the level, and it's no different. I remember I was listening to it with my son, who is very much into his football. I kept saying to him, did you hear that? The difference between Ronaldo and Messi. Messi has the skill. Ronaldo, it's hard work. You have to work hard. So work ethic. And then thirdly, what I'll say is discipline. Discipline. I think, and discipline combined with ability to use time well. These days, I see lots of young people who will spend hours and hours on social media, and often what you are reading, you are who you are from what you read and consume.
You're thinking.
Absolutely, mindset. And so making good use of time and being disciplined, knowing that if I'm working, then I'm working. If I'm doing,
so being intentional about what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. You have to, over the years, certainly in recent years, so at the beginning of my life, I didn't know what I was going to do or become, because, as I said, I didn't have that experience or exposure. But in recent years, as I have been in the working environment and seeing how successful people have done it, there's no doubt in my mind about being intentional and strategic in everything you do. I think through things very, very well. Carefully. And it's just everyone around me where that is what we do. That is what you end up doing, so really good use of time and discipline.
Okay. Something else that we mentioned earlier, which you haven't touched upon, is hunger. You've got to be hungry to want something badly enough, to progress. I mean, can you just tell us a little bit more about how important it is to stay hungry?
Yes, and to stay hungry, you must have something to drive you to stay hungry. And some will say, maybe a different way of putting it is, what really motivates, drives you, what gets you to do that.
Yeah.
And I certainly in my case, I will say it's the fear of failure.
Okay.
The fear of failure.
Okay.
So when I go back to Ghana, for instance, and I go to my hometown, Asokore, Koforidua, and I see,
where you came from,
where I came from, other people of similar age, what they are doing, or even in Accra, Adenta, where I lived, and I see again the people that I grew up with, and see how fortunate I am to think that if I don't, and I've talked about competitiveness and how competitive it is in the working environment, think that if I don't continue pushing myself, I may lose it.
Okay.
So that fear of failure really drives you. You get to a stage in life where certainly that's just my view, where material things do not matter.
Okay.
Because at that stage you've seen a lot. You've traveled and you've tasted good life and good things, and so I think it's much more beyond certainly material things. I am not motivated by that, but it's that fear of losing what you have acquired drives me certainly. That's one. But also, I guess depending on your profession and what it is that you're doing, sometimes regulation can also drive you to keep working hard. And because the regulator expects, if you drop the ball, if you fail, they will come after you.
Okay.
And so that.
So again, the same sort of fear. Okay.
So for me, believing that you want to sort of remain at the top, achieve, continue challenging yourself, and it's endless. You can just keep. At every stage you get to in life, ask yourself, what's next? Because unless you can find an answer to that question, okay, what's next? What is the next level? You will be remain where you are. Continue challenging yourself and that fear, because if you don't keep pushing yourself, others will catch up and go past you. So
what do you do to unwind? Because I know you're a super busy person now. It's even a miracle that you're sitting here today.
Everybody is super busy. I mean, everybody is super busy. I mean, what do I do to unwind? I used to play a lot of tennis when I when I didn't have children, when I was a bit younger. But over the years, when I have had children, I'm not that active in playing tennis. I do now and then. We'll go out with my sons, my eldest son in particular. He very much loves tennis, so I will be out playing with him, and the younger one also will come around, and it's really nice.
Family time.
Family time. I have a membership in my local club. And so go to use the court whenever, and the three of us, myself and my two boys, will go and just play. Or my youngest son is very much into his football, and so
he keeps you busy.
Keeps me busy. What it is, traveling around, taking him around, playing matches, and so on.
And how do you find time to do that? Because you travel a lot as well.
Yes, you do travel. So if I'm around,
Okay.
then I will
Try and fit it in.
I'll fit in. And the one thing that you will find is that you will always have far too much, or you will have enough on
Okay.
to keep you. There will never
Occupied.
be occupied. There will
Okay.
never be a point in time where you
You
say,
run out of stuff to do.
I have nothing to do.
Okay.
But that should not stop you from living and doing the other things.
Okay.
Prioritize. So I know, and actually as you get senior, you learn to, and in fact, just about a month ago, I was having lunch with one of my mentors.
Yeah.
And he was, discussing or advising me on, next stage,
The next steps.
next steps, and what am I finding challenging now, and he made this point that you will never get to a stage where
You're satisfied.
you're satisfied, or that you don't have enough. There will always be a lot more to do than you can do at any particular point in time. But prioritizing. So even on my way here, I have got something that I needed to do. And as I was coming, I will be on the phone with my managers and the directors, telling them what to do. So you learn to prioritize. You determine at every point in time what is important. And again, I remember a piece of advice a partner gave me much earlier in my career. That life, and certainly at the top, it's like spinning 5 sets of plates in the air. And all you need to do is make sure that you don't drop each one of them. So you spin each a little bit. You can spin that a little bit. Spin it a little bit. Just keep it all up. And you find that you will do just fine. Enjoy life as much as you can and work hard.
Something else that you mentioned when we were talking earlier was the fact that you like to travel by train.
Yes.
Because so you can work.
Yes.
So I offered to take you home. He said, no, I'll go on a train so I can work.
Yes.
And it just shows the mindset that you're kind of trying to optimize every little second that you can get.
Yes. Those that know me or close to me will tell you I'm very particular about time. The use of time is the most important asset you will ever have. And I think if you don't learn to use time well, you will not succeed or be able to achieve all the things that you would like to do. So very, very particular about, as you say, making good use of every time.
What I mean, you're very different to these days. You call them Gen Z people, the younger generation who are always on their phone, the social media, what you talked about. How do you see such people, maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, progressing in a career, a professional career, or do such people not have a chance in succeeding in that space? Because you're very structured. I mean, you come across very structured, very thoughtful, very methodical, and I've only recently gotten to know you, but I can see the way you live your life, and you don't mess around, right? But Gen Z people tend to have a more chilled out approach to life, and they're just like, oh, let me be. We'll figure it out along as we go along, and I'm just kind of wondering if that outlook, could perhaps hinder people from progressing in a certain direction.
I think you can have that social side and
still be intentional
and still be calculated in what you do and how you go. I think you can do both.
Can do that.
But the danger is that social media and these things are very addictive. There are times I can also spend long on WhatsApp, reading WhatsApp messages, and then sometimes some of the things people are writing amazes me. Goodness, what are you talking about? How do you even get the time to be doing all this? But there is a time for everything. So you find me maybe responding to messages, WhatsApp messages, a lot more probably on Friday evenings.
Okay. Okay.
Or weekends.
Okay.
But goes back to that point I made earlier about being disciplined.
Okay.
Knowing what it is that you want in life.
Okay.
And being focused.
Okay.
Discipline. Do what you have to do for work.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the social side,
do
it. And then when you switch off work, make the most of the social side
as well. Okay.
But if you're working, focus on that.
So as we wrap up this interview, we have a tradition on this podcast where we give our guests the opportunity to say thank you to anyone of their choice, anyone who's maybe held them along their way. So is there anyone that you'd like to dedicate this episode to? I'll put you on the spot there.
I will say my parents, actually. Many people have helped me along the way, as I have alluded to earlier.
Yeah. What's the lady's name? Liza? The lady.
Isel.
Isel. Okay.
Yes. A lot of other people have helped me.
Okay.
But I think my parents, that foundation I was given at the start.
Okay.
That solid education.
Okay.
I won't be here today had it not been that.
Okay.
And then also knowing that they are constantly thinking, no matter where I am in the world, where work takes me, my mom will reach out.
Okay.
Send a message. How are you doing?
Okay.
How is it going?
Okay.
And knowing that they are constantly praying for me.
Wow.
Okay. I will always be grateful. Okay. I mean, by my nature training, I am challenging. I like to challenge people's thoughts and what they say. So sometimes I may come across to mom and dad that, I am challenging their thoughts and what they are saying.
Okay.
But that is no way to say that I am not grateful or appreciative of everything they've done for me and continue to do for me. So I say a big thank you to them.
Fantastic. What do you think of this podcast and what we're trying to do?
I think it's brilliant. I talked about how I never had anyone advising me or guiding me until I got this exposure to what it was like in the city and in the professional world. I genuinely believe that I would have done better in life if I had that guidance, exposure earlier. And so even just someone telling me, apply here, do this is what this will give you. This is the things the soft skills that you need to pay attention to. Yes, it's good to have the academic, the solid academic record and so on and so forth. But you also need these soft skills. And there may be others like me, at that age, who have no one. And so for those people, I hope that this podcast will encourage them and show them that there is hope. There is way of doing things to get out of what seems to be
one thing as well, you mentioned when we were chatting earlier, was that you even know people who, as you're growing up, kind of messed around and all that. Some of them are even dead now. And all that. But somehow you managed to find a path and get through. So
yes,
I'm really, really encouraged by your story.
Thank you, Daniel.
I would also like to say a very big thank you to Mr. Douglas Asoma of I Trust Services, who's been very helpful and very supportive of our podcast. And Antwi, thank you so much for your time. And I'm really, really honored that you made time to be with us this evening on Against All Odds. If you like this episode, I'd like you to do a couple of things. Comment, leave some comments in the comment section below. Like this video, share, and subscribe to help us build a platform where stories like Antwis can reach the masses, to inspire and to give them hope. So thank you very much, and see you next week. Thank you, Antwi.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.